Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time. We're changing the world one woman at a time. We're changing the planet one woman at a time. I'm your host, Cynthia James. I'm so grateful to be with you. I'm so grateful to bring to you women that inspire me, that I know are making a difference on the planet, and that I know will inspire you. So I'm very excited today to have Dena Samuels. She is a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, and mindfulness is the foundation for everything that she does. Dena, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Cynthia. It is such a pleasure to be here today.
I'm so excited about you and the work you do. We met because someone we knew mutually said, you two need to meet.
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah.
So talk to me, for those who may not understand, what an expert that deals in diversity and equity and inclusion does. Talk to me about that some.
Sure. So my background, when I look at my education, it's, I've undergrad politics, master's in sociology. So I really consider myself a sociologist. And my PhD is in educational leadership, research, and policy. And the education piece to me is really how to engage people in these topics. And so I really am a sociologist at heart. But so that's the work I do, but it's all about engaging people in this work so that they understand that really the true transformation we need to be having on the planet right now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting about that, I was facilitating a group last night of African-American leaders, and the whole conversation was, how do you reconcile the things that are challenging for you that you're seeing every day? Mm-hmm. And how do you bring consciousness to that? How do you bring your awareness? How do you bring something within yourself that it can shift what we are seeing? Yeah. And part of you is afraid as an African-American to walk down the street sometime.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And that's really the heart of the work that I do. My work is truly mindfulness based, and just to talk about that for a moment, I'm a white woman doing work on, I have a book that has mindfulness in the title. This could be very problematic in terms of cultural appropriation. So I never talk about mindfulness without talking about the roots of where it came from, that it didn't come from anybody who looks like me, right? That it came from the Eastern world and indigenous cultures and brown and darker skinned folks. And so, I think that's important, and to know what do we do with that? That's a whole other podcast. It's a whole other conversation.
Totally.
But I do need, I wouldn't do the work without mentioning that, at least giving a little taste of that's something that I think very deeply about. That said, the other question I'm asked often is, mindfulness has been brought to the westernized world mostly from white folks. And so what does that mean for folks of color? How does that help folks of color? So I talk a lot about the work that I do is implicit bias trainings. I do keynotes and workshops around microaggressions, creating a more multicultural organization. I talk about leadership, mindful inclusive leadership, and a lot of the people that I'm speaking to are white, but not all of them. And I, as an inclusive educator, I think it's really important that I am thinking about this from all the different ways. And so, and who's receiving it, who's on the receiving end. What I know and what I teach is that mindfulness actually is very helpful. It's an incredible tool that we can use for so many things. First of all, for recognizing implicit bias. We didn't know this, it wasn't evidence-based until about 5 or 7 years ago. That's when I learned that there's research that shows that if you have any kind of mindfulness practice, whether it be prayer or a spiritual practice or just focusing on the present moment, it actually lowers your implicit bias.
Mm.
And once I learned that that was true, I got really excited because I had been teaching implicit bias training for years and years and happened to have my own mindfulness practice. And so I combined that, and that's really the basis of my latest book. But more so, I talk about mindfulness from a place of calming ourselves down, calming our parasympathetic system. Something, I call it a 10-second vacation. It's something we can do anywhere, anytime, and anyone on the planet can use it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really for everyone. Mm-hmm.
So I think this is great. What I want to say to the listeners is that it's like you can stop and pause in any given time in your day.
Yes.
To bring you back to your center, to ground you, to make decisions from a different point of view, a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know, what is it that you have done to prepare you to go out? Because you're a speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and you're an educator. But what have you done to prepare yourself to go out to speak to these various audiences, so that you can touch different people and different cultures and different lifestyles?
Yes, beautiful question. I would say probably that my biggest experience that has led me to this, well, there's a few, the personal experience, my personal spiritual journey, but also the work that I've done. I was an educator at the university for 20 years. And so, and I was consulting on the side as well. But about a year and a half ago, I left my tenured position at the university to consult full-time, to speak full-time. And so that's what I do. And I'm also, do some coaching. So all of that said, I feel like, when I was at the university, I had students. First of all, I'll say it this way, that my intro course, which I co-created with a colleague of mine, was called Intro to Social Justice Studies. And it was a course that you got credit for, like you got diversity credit for. So it was almost like it fulfilled a lot of requirements. And so therefore I got a cross section of the population. I was teaching in Colorado Springs, University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. And Colorado Springs is pretty well known as being fairly conservative. So thinking about this approach, and I consider myself more progressive, and thinking about this from a little bit of a broader perspective, I was engaged for 20 years, no joke, with folks who really weren't receptive to talking about implicit bias or cultural inclusiveness or even the idea of mindfulness. And so it has been a beautiful education for me to be able to really speak to anyone at this point.
Well, I love this, but I want to ask you, because here's something I think is important. What you're talking about is a tangible kind of obstacle to teaching and delivering what you want. Mm-hmm. So what's your advice to women who have a passion for something, want to deliver it, and kind of are hitting walls along the way? What do you want to tell them
in terms of doing this work in particular, or anything?
Their work,
any work?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if you are driven by a passion that inspires you, without a doubt, go for it. We're here on this planet for as long as we are, right? And what do you really want to, as Audre Lorde would say, do you want to die with your story still in you? Do you want to, leave this planet without having truly given your all and really lived fully? That's what I would say, that to ask that question of yourself, of yourselves, to really think about and feel about in your body. What does it feel like for you when you think about this inspiration that you have, that you want to do something? Think about that and go from that energy, as opposed to all the fears that come into play. And there are plenty. There's so much social conditioning that stops us constantly and makes us. It's actually built to have us live small lives, these small, manageable, appropriate, proper, etc. kind of lives, so that we fit in this box. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be fitting in some box. Like, I really want to expand beyond that. Yeah.
I love that. And so some of my clients, are watching what's going on in our country and in the planet, and the separation and division, and they want to make a difference, and they activism calls them, but they're not necessarily wanting to be out with a picket sign or marching. What do you tell those people in terms of where they can look to find places to bring their activist heart?
Oh, I love that. The activist heart is just a beautiful image in my mind. I would say that talking to other people, engaging across social differences, if there's ways of getting involved in the community, they may not want to be marching, but there's so many other organizations, groups of people getting together, especially these days, right? Even more so. I think back to the 60s, and there was the groups that formed. We're in that place again, right? Where groups are forming, neighbors are getting together. I'm holding a party next week. A friend of mine is hosting, specifically for a candidate who believes in these values. And I think having those kinds of conversations, and especially building relationships across social differences, in my mind, is the antidote, or at least one of the antidotes, to social injustice.
Oh, I love that. So if people want to be in touch with you, they want to find out what you're doing, how do they find you?
The best way to reach me, honestly, is my website, which is denasamuels.com. Couldn't be simpler.
So DenaSamuels.com.
You got it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm grateful that you're here, but I want to ask you, what's the one thing you want women to know about awakening, about bringing their gifts to this planet?
So what I would love for people to know is that they are not alone, that there is an incredible groundswell of people across the planet who are waking up, who are transforming, whose consciousness is elevating, both personally, spiritually, even socially. And we are part of that movement, you and I, and continues to grow. I am amazed by how many people I am continuing to meet. And in fact, that number has just risen exponentially. Just even in the past year, I would say even in the past 6 months, the people that I come in contact who are sort of like-minded, in the sense of they're looking at consciousness, they're looking at how to grow their business consciously. I work with companies that are doing that. There are people who are saying, how do I do this personally, on a personal level? How can I connect internally? So that, to me, would be mindfulness, guided meditations, all of that. And how can I connect across our social differences with other folks? How can my interactions be more conscious? And then how can I connect beautifully with the planet and be more conscious living? Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge. And I felt like we could have done an hour and a half conversation on all the stuff that you do. But I think it's something that I want to just acknowledge how important the work is that you're doing, that we all need to understand, our diversity and how we can be equitable in our connections, and that inclusion is a need for humanity across the board. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here. I am so grateful.
Thank you. It really has been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Yes. So ladies, thank you so much for being here. Come back, excuse me, often. We're adding new podcasts every week. These women are doing amazing things on the planet, and I bring them in to just remind you of what's possible, because we are all here to do great things. We all have unique gifts, and we're all powerful. So thank you so much. I want you to know you matter, you're important, and I'm grateful to be with you.